Yo, yo, yo.
What's up, Matt? How are you?
Living the dream, man.
Where it looks like you're living the dream in a. Are you in a hotel or where you at, man?
I was trying to find a quiet place in this house where my wife talking. So I'm in a
It,
secluded bedroom with the. I was gonna I was gonna put the background that had the palm tree and the rolling sea behind me, but I did not do that. That was tacky.
well, it looks great. We have a bunch of people rolling in. I saw you just sent your push out, so that we have a lot of people coming into LinkedIn and on YouTube right now. They're rolling in as we talk, so we'll give it a few minutes. Wanted to give a shout out
Cool.
to Tom over in Fremont, Nebraska, that's watching. Tom, I'm glad you figured out how to get on YouTube and watch us. We're glad to always have you, man. And Matt, you got a bunch of people coming in right now also.
Good.
While I drink my
Welcome to all.
unflavored LaCroix.
A can full of carbonation.
It's it's exactly what it is, man. I don't know why I keep doing that. My wife thinks it's a waste of money, but it scratches that itch I'm looking for. So lots to talk about. We'll wait a few more seconds. Nick, how's YouTube looking? Okay, it's interesting. More people start coming in on YouTube than LinkedIn lately, Matt.
What's the kind of count that we get for the show normally,
So at a good
so
show,
people know what they're.
for a good show, we'll have 100, 125. I say a good show, a show where everybody gets it and is lined up perfectly. But then afterwards, we've had some KPIs where, over a week period, there'll be 1,000 people watch it, right? Those are the ones that you
Wow,
can
it'd be a
track.
horse.
Those are the ones that you can track that actually see it, right?
Mhm.
There's Bob. Hey, Bob,
Yeah, I
how are
gotta
you? Bob Schneider rolling in. So we'll wait to get a few
give a
more on
shout out to all
here.
you guys. So give a shout out to all the guys taking their wives to dinner on Friday night when you listen to this on the way to dinner.
Yeah, George Hodges said that's because LinkedIn is too hard to find the video for me. YouTube just takes you straight to the video. Yeah, George, I've noticed that too. I have a hard time finding it on my own LinkedIn link, and it's certainly a lot easier to find on YouTube. So that's great feedback. I think, Nick, we're going to start pushing it more on the YouTube link, and it's a little bit more user friendly there, right? Thank you, George. Appreciate it. Well, let's jump into it, Matt, uh, for Thursday, the 10th. This is lunch with Lumberman, Matt Lehman, Lehman's Lumber Guide, Ashley Buckle, Materials Exchange, Chicago, Illinois. And Matt and I every week talk about the trends we're seeing in the lumber industry, where Matt really brings in a lot of his partners and users, and we kind of proactively or interactively discuss what's going on in the market. And with Matt's new scouting report out, really brings us more up to date on some of the real things that's happening and the real trends that are happening. So we will let's jump into it. I saw, you know, stock market's up a little bit today, Matt. Inflation, I guess the number was going in the right way for a bit, um, and you know, uh, Bitcoin, Ethereum, all those things are up this morning, and we'll see and the 30-year mortgage had a tick down this today. Believe it or not.
Touchdown.
Brian, hey, Brian, good morning to you too. So look at, um, I'm going to kind of read what you put out here today, and it said current thoughts, and this is what you put out on LinkedIn, Matt. And if it's okay if I read it, then we'll kind of go into
Yeah,
that. Does that
that's
make sense? Okay, so
yeah.
you said pick any lumber chart for 2022. What do you see? Prices are working lower. That only means one of two things. First, oversupply, meaning production exceeds demand, or second, consumer inventories are not being replaced as they're being sold, meaning dealer inventories have been consistently leaning all year. By admission, we know the latter is the case, and it is my observation this lumber market is not just underbought, it is below underbought. Buyers have become overly comfortable letting mills carry their inventory, getting leaner month after month. Producers are not distributors. Logistically, they have gotten away with being those distributors all year. I have never witnessed a more conflicted lumber market. This mismatch is exhausting all participants. Everyone is seeking relief, which in my book means fattening up field inventories. My forecast decision point suggests a reversal to the upside within the next 2 weeks. do with that what you will. So yeah, no, it's interesting. You know, I wake up this morning, Matt, and I see how, you know, a big trucking firm has laid off like 2,000 people, right? We've seen, um, I think we're starting to absorb a lot of this negative thought into stuff and have been. I mean, we've seen it for 5 months in our industry, 6 months. Um,
Yeah.
I've got two good friends that are home builders that are telling me, you know, how they still have some backlog, but their forecast in the future is, especially single family, is it's a little tough, right? And again, I agree people are running inventories down. On our platform, what I look is people bidding on prompt items, and if somebody has it for 2 weeks, which normally used to be fine, that's not good enough now. Even with one short week coming up with Thanksgiving, they still want it this week or next week, which is really hard windows to hit in many cases, or impossible in many cases to overcommit on something like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll let you kind of go into a little bit what you talked about, and then let's so what when you were talking about that today, what was your thought process? What are you seeing out there differently? What are the people in your orbit telling you?
Well, I just I've had two particularly robust roundtables in the last couple of weeks. One was exclusively builders. There was about 20 builders. They range from a small builder that does 20 a year to another one that does about 6,000 a year. And what was interesting about that, Ash, was that the larger the builder was, the less bullish, I mean, the less bearish they were. The more bullish they were, the more optimistic. And it seems like the smaller guys are feeling the pinch of like custom homes and people just pulling back and that kind of thing. It's like you said, absorb, which is, I think, was a great word. It's like the closer we get to the end of the year, it's you know, between now and the end of the year, a lot of things have got to happen. There's going to be, the builders are going to have to make their forecast for what they think 2023 is going to be. The home centers are going to have to make their forecast for what they think it's going to be. Contracts for OSB and contracts for lumber are going to have to be taken care of. There's a lot of homework that's got to be taken care of. And up until this point, for the last 6 weeks, I think everybody's just been in limbo, knowing they didn't have to make those decisions. Where it's getting to push time now, and there's a lot of jobs that were. I keep hearing a lot of jobs that are getting bid or bought or placed this, you know, over the last couple of weeks, haven't been bought yet. I did another round with about 15, 20 lumber dealer yards, and they all said, yeah, they didn't all say the same thing, but they all, about 2/3 of them. I said, show of hands, how many of you are running leaner inventories than you did last year? 2/3 of them raise their hand, just roughly 2/3. I said, how many of you will build inventory between now and the end of the year? And almost all of them said they would build inventory. Nobody said they were going to reduce inventory any further. So I think I've talked at length about how exhausting it is to try to run a lean inventory. You have to look at it every single day, make sure you're not out of this one little thing, or you've got a job site held up because you're out of 2 or 3 items. And consequently, the mills get the phone calls for those spotty mixed trucks that's got those 2 or 3 items on that they need, and they can't get them. And I got to thinking earlier today, but and I'm going to drop some. I'm going to name drop a little bit because of if you take the collective consolidation of USLBM, what Builders First Source and so and their consolidation, the companies the size of like Dixie Line, 84 Lumber, guys like that, and then you take Menards, Lowe's, Home Depot for big 3 home centers, and just leave out the independent lumber yards, independent dealers. Throw in the truss manufacturers and you leave the truss manufacturers out if you want to, but throw in the wood preservers, people that have to get prepared for spring. If that group of people that I just named right there decided they wanted to expand their inventory by 2 weeks, there would not be enough lumber in the market to cover it. It would send a shockwave through the industry. And right now everybody's at a point where they're confessedly underbought, they're lean, they need to buy. And like you said, we're coming up on a Thanksgiving week, which is going to be a short week. We're going to follow that 2 weeks later with a Christmas week. It's going to be a short week, and a New Year's week. This is a short week. I think the market runs the risk of having some of those long weekends turn into longer weekends, and we see a little supply crunch. But I think it's just real dangerous right in here to be fading the trend of the FTPs, where 82% of the time the market goes higher between now and the end of January. To be betting against that trend when prices are at a place where everybody's comfortable, everybody likes them, but to be nickel and diamond for $5 and $20 a thousand, I think is a big mistake. And I just think we got a stampede of buyers coming that once it starts to roll, it's going to be Katie bar the door.
Well, so one question, I guess, question, comment, challenge on that. Nobody is going to build an inventory like they did last year because business is slower, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so are they going to buy? Are they going to buy 2 weeks? I mean, I guess my question is, I don't disagree that we're going to see a buy, but then what?
Yeah, so you buy and then you buy for 2 weeks. Everybody's expecting that November and December are going to be less outtake than October, and that's kind of a given. So that's where we're going to be. But we're 6 weeks now from being at the end of the year and being in January. My expectation is that we're going to start the year better than everybody thinks we are. We're going to have the builders are going to be in a better spot than the worst case apocalyptic scenario is going to be, and that's just seeing at the number of homes that are being listed for sale. There's fewer and fewer being listed for sale. The supply is just low. There's still a lot of buyers out there. I just think this surprise is to the upside because everybody's overly preparing for the downside. But if this market only buys enough to just fill in your inventory, just to bump it up, break even, so you're comfortable, you got a 2 week inventory, then what happens next is 2 weeks. Then what do you do in 2 weeks? So if you've got the $67,000 question, trying to think of what the TV show used to be. I think it was a $67,000 question. How much production is going to be taken market between now and the end of the year, and remain that way? If you're a producer and you see what the home builders are projecting, everybody's projecting things lower and doing less. Mills are not going to keep cranking out the same volume of lumber. We're going to see a scale back year that trickles through the end of the year and the first of the year. And so it's going to be a combination of supply shortages, just a little bit of supply shortage and a little bit of demand is going to completely flip the hand the other way, make it more bullish.
So Brett brought up a question. Brett Walls agreed on the field running thin inventories, and I think we can kind of all agree on that right now because I mean I'm seeing it, right? I mean I'm seeing it from the people I usually buy volume or buying trucks and check. And he said, "You think mill curtailments that have already happened will make supply fall short of demand in Q1?"
I think that the supply that yes, I think what's going to happen, Brett, between now and the end of the year will make a supply shortfall, sort of demand in Q1. And I think part of that's not going to be so much focus on the shortfall is that I think demand is going to be better than expected in Q1. And this is, if you look at what's just happened since yesterday, with one little blip in a hesitation in inflation, the stock market goes up 1,000 points. And it's just, I mean, you get if you get interest rates the Fed's talking like, well, maybe we're getting close. That's just close to being able to get curbing inflation and implying a closeness to a spot where we're going to stop raising interest rates. How's the market going to respond when you go from what 3/4 point interest rate increases to just going maybe a half or a quarter? They're going to perceive that as being positive, and I think the market's going to get. I mean, if the lumber market does like it always does, it's going to be irrationally proactive. And I'm not saying it's going to be a justifiable inventory building, but I think we will definitely see a panic reaction to being underbought. and trying to
Yeah,
get back into a better
the
position.
interesting thing is some of these big companies always buy on a back-looking consumption, right? They look back and they look at what their trending days of inventory are. So right now, those are just continuing to
Yeah,
fall. That's why you and I kind of talked about that last week about how there are certain people at those companies that are the people running the algorithms telling people when to buy or when not to buy, right? And uh, that's kind of backwards looking, not forward looking, right? So that's always a tough one on a turn on anything to
yeah.
adjust for. You're generally too late on that one, right? So that's where
Especially the
independent.
size, especially the size of those guys that are making those decisions. I mean, they're making decisions for yards, companies that have 400 and 800 yards, 2,000 yards, and said not yet. And so I mean, they all can't wait to go to zero. But I mean, I've seen lumber
Yeah, no,
yards that
that's look
had
at I don't envy being in that position, right? Because that's a tough call to have to make that one to say let's
yeah,
go, right? Or yeah, yeah,
especially if you're
because it's
late if you
hard.
don't make the call. You know,
Well, the bigger you get, the one thing I've noticed, the bigger you get, one of those big companies can start the whole thing off pretty quickly if it ever they can shut it off and start it up, right? Pretty quickly. Well, hey, look, let's talk
I was
about the.
talking to a guy last week. I was going to say, I was a guy
Go
last
ahead,
week. He
Matt.
told me
Sorry.
that his company bought 200 trucks of Southern Pine lumber, and another company had done the same thing, 200 trucks. And I said, well, by my math, that comes up to about a unit a piece for each of your stores. That's it's 200 truckloads of something for one of those big yards is nothing. It's not even one store, one home center store I went into. I think I mentioned this last week, a couple of weeks ago. Said they hadn't received a single unit of lumber in 3 weeks on a delivery truck from the warehouse. So they were just, they're intentionally driving their inventory lower, and I've just never seen a situation where you drive inventory lower into a seasonal time when things ought to be getting better. It's a bad bet to bet against it.
So let's go over the guide. How is the scouting report coming now? How is the feedback coming? Are you starting to get more people filling in this data and talking to them with you, Matt?
Yeah, I've got a list. My little scouting group now is about 25, and I'm getting good feedback from. It's taking that many to get a dozen people to give me some feedback, but it's certainly catching on, and more people are being participants, I guess. Um, and if you notice that my prices are in $10 increments, so you may
Okay.
see that you see that there may be no movement one week, or if prices happen to be moving just slightly, $5 or $10 in one direction. But I've noticed you probably have too over the last couple of years with COVID, the way things are. A $30 price movement day doesn't mean anything because it can go $30 back once the products. So the volatility of the market, when you look at a print basis, the volatility doesn't seem like much, but day to day, the prices are, can be 10 or 15 or $20 on product from the same mills in the same regions. And it's just, people say it doesn't make any sense, but if the mill doesn't have it to sell, they're not going to be aggressive about it. If they've got cars to load and trucks in the gate and wood on the ground, they're going to get aggressive and sell it. So you almost got to be lucky, be at the right place at the right time. And I was guys this morning that this is this is a good time to make sure you've got a wholesaler in your pocket, a broker in your pocket that happens to be at the right place at the right time to get an offering, or wholesale distributors who can take advantage of some bulk cars. If somebody has half a dozen quietly, it's not a good time to be single sourcing anything. You need to be using like the platform, like your platform and your whole network of everybody, and just there's so much opportunity and so much variable and volatility in prices. You got to be on your toes.
No doubt, Matt. Look, so I was just reading through the market conditions, and I wanted to go down to the snapshot down below of the momentum. I like looking at that and we could talk about the different momentum of the different items while we do that. So if we look at 2x4 Southern Yellow Pine, I noticed 2x6 has still been tight after that. Not tight after, it's been firm and moving higher after that last buy we had. Um, 2x8, I've noticed a lot of the higher grades, number one and all that, getting a lot of inquiry. 2x4, number two, haven't seen as much movement on that, but that was the most overvalued one. I'm sure it has liquidity every day, but maybe you have a little bit more feedback to the 2x4 Southern Pine market.
Well, it is interesting that in everything, 2x4s are weaker than 2x6 and wider. And I'm not going to say weaker, but not just not as strong. But in the big mix of the jumbling of whatever's going on, there's not an abundance of 2x6 and wider in anything except I think still 2x12, 18, and 20. Number two, Southern Pine is still trying to find its way back to earth after being about $2,000 when everything else is. I think at one point 2x12 eights were like $400 and 18s and 20s were almost $2,000. So they were way out of joint. Yeah. That was a laminated, that was an EWP kind of thing, but also the premiums that 2x4s were carrying in relation to everything else just made it a more viable product to produce and make more of it. So part of this the strength you see in the 2x6 and wider has to do with more production of 2x4s. So the more production of 2x4s has created an abundance of that, less production of 2x6 and wider. So you start to see those prices kind of equalize a little bit. And so now everything's getting back into that mid $400 range. So you're probably going to see that some of that production start to shift back to 2x10s and 2x6s and 2x8s because you get more of it through the planer at the same price per 1,000 board foot. You opt for more board footage to go through the planer. So I would expect that change.
Canadian spruce, a good comment here. The industry is expecting Canadian-owned mills to reduce supply in the U.S. and Canada. However, buyers are not willing to jump the gun yet. I mean, that's still kind of trending a little bit higher right now, according to your numbers.
Yeah, and actually, that the momentum did change a little bit from the publication that's going to come out today. It's a little more, a little bit different, but it's still. I think what it shows. I'll answer your question. What the momentum and direction shows at the publication day is more disorganization in the market, and I think that disorganization comes from people feeling uncomfortable with being lean for so long. It's just not a natural, normal way to run your business and the position to have this time of year. People feel comfortable having a little more lumber, and they're just looking for a reason to do it. But yeah, in the South, in the South, we don't typically get long-term curtailments, but we've never had a situation where the largest producers in the region were dropping names again, Canfor, Interfor, and West Fraser combined like 46% of the entire production. I think that's the number. And we know that those companies in Canada, and particularly in BC, will take extended downtime when the numbers aren't right. When the pencil pushers say that's the pot's not right, let's do something about it. Dial the notch back a little bit, dial the speed back a little bit, and start making a little bit less. And that can happen with just cutting a shift by an hour or 30 minutes or 2 hours, and instead of just rolling the whole place back, just a little less output in a daily basis. And like Brett was, has it been enough so far to create an imbalance? And I think it's close, but I think if over the holidays, over the next 3 weeks, between now and 6 weeks, between now and the end of the year, we got 3 short weeks of production. And so far, there's been no announcements of any substantial curtailments or rollbacks, but we're not owed that. That mills don't have any obligation to tell us what they're going to do.
Well, it is the week of NOLA, and it's been the history whenever I was at NOLA almost my whole life that there is always either bullish or a bearish announcement in one way or another related to production or consumption or something, right? If I think back to my whole career, it was usually on a Thursday night or something, or Friday, or right after the cocktail reception at one of the NOLA events, that something would come out and everybody would go running back to their room to see if they could buy some stuff. So
Yeah.
we'll
And it's
see if
interesting. I saw a picture of the cocktail party last night, and it was like they're all amassed out there thinking like, okay, what are we going to do? Who's got this? Yes, who got the gizmo? Who's got the secret?
it's
It does look like
interesting.
they're kind of waiting to
So
pounce.
I don't be surprised if today or tomorrow something doesn't get, if there is going to be any kind of announcement, that something could leak out there, but who knows? Also, one thing I noticed on here, Matt, and we talking to people, you look at hem fur on the U.S. species still seems to be um, the most, the cheaper out of the species than Doug fir. Obviously, it is, but some really big, like if you look at 2x12 Doug fir versus 2x12 hem fir, it's almost a $500 to $600 difference, right? We sold some European 2x12 Doug fir off of the port that's coming in, and I look at those numbers, I'm like, wow, that is a big number that those sold at. I mean, Doug fir 2x12 is still selling off the East Coast over $1,000 a thousand, and people are buying it that are coming in 3 or 4 weeks out.
So what is the difference between U.S. Doug fir and European Doug fir?
I almost gave you a smart ass answer and said one's made in Europe and one's made in
Well,
the
yeah,
U.S.
that's good. Like, why's the
But
market
look,
going up? Wolves and sellers.
I believe they are still all have a North American accredited grading agency on them, and to give you an exact answer on that, I'd have to pull up what the European span ratings are on them, which we do which people have. So I'm not sure the exact. I know it's a beautiful product. I mean, look at it's out of the same type of species tree that is cut here. It's just cut over in Europe, and I'm sure that there is certain um, rating requirements, and so everybody's buying them. They look up their rating to see if they can use it or not. But I noticed that showing up, and I thought that was a head scratcher, all the way up to 20 footers, right? And the numbers
Yeah.
that they're trading at are big. But and maybe that's one of the reasons, versus when we looked at the uh, 2x12 18s and 20s in Southern Pine were so high, because I think some of those were starting to bleed into that, some usage that people were using on the long lengths and on those items.
Yeah, the
But
EWP
yeah, so,
stuff.
Brett said it's kind of like SPF versus SPFS. I'm like, yeah, I mean, like I say to everybody, before you ever buy anything, ask for what it is, where it's coming from, what the grading agencies are, and check your loading and span requirements. They're all available online.
Yeah,
But my
unfortunately,
point
they're
was,
not all the same.
it's a lot of money, man. I couldn't believe how the price that some of this stuff is trading at, right? And it may be just because I haven't been looking at 2x12 for a while. OSB, what I did notice is there's plenty of offerings of OSB out there. With that said, there's not a lot on the ground for distribution. 7/16 is being offered out all around the place. The thicker panels have had a hard time really haven't really pulled back as much. We traded over 40 trucks of panels in the last few days, and the crazy thing is we took some orders on 23:30 seconds. They matched up here, uh, and people are calling wondering, like, the next day where they're at. I'm like, you just literally clicked on the buy button yesterday, right? So
Yeah,
but that
if
tells
you
you
notice
with what it
something that
yeah.
I was gonna say something that's unique about OSB. OSB tends to go through periods where it gets real flat, and normally it gets real flat when it's real cheap, like 125 bucks, 150 bucks, 180 bucks. But that flatness almost always breaks out to the high side, and we just see this flat spell here has been 330, been kind of 300, 330, the number in
Yeah.
the southeast,
Yeah.
the 270 Canada, but it's been flat, and it happens this time of year, and it always, I'm going to say always, but it seems like every time you get this flat spell, it's just like it's just ironing it out to get ready to make a smooth runway for a takeoff. But
Hey, Dennis,
I'd be friendly.
Dennis Lightborn just showed up on YouTube, so it's good to see and hear you guys. Good to see you too, Dennis. Thanks for showing up. Matt, here's the interesting thing I heard in OSB. I was talking to a person the other day. I said, "Hey, are these getting your investment numbers for you?" And this is a wholesale distributor I've known for a long time. And he goes, I don't think I'd be investing in this until it got down to 200 or 180. I'm like, well, you know, I'm not saying it won't go there, but uh, everybody is basing, because everybody is uncertain and potentially has more fear in our industry on the speculative side. The number they always look at in investing is the old lows of the past 15 or 20 years, right? And
Yeah.
I understand why they're saying it, and my head has been there before also, but there are higher costs to things. Inflation doesn't just affect food or milk and eggs and bread, right? It affects lumber too. So I think your costs are quite a bit higher than normally will. That's why I say on OSB, I see these numbers here and I'm like, um, yeah, they're hovering at that flat point, and I think people that would want to invest want them a lot lower. Other people don't care, but they really are starting to kind of just pile up at that number there, right? That number is, you said
Yeah.
270
And
Canada, 340, 330 southeast, southwest, and that's the same numbers I agree with you on, Matt. And there's not much counter in any of those.
it's interesting that do you remember a guy named Tom Martin
That
from
sounds
back in the
really
80s or so?
familiar. Really
He
familiar.
was he was a lumber broker, but Tom used to have these anecdotes. Like one of us, the longer they don't buy, the more bullish I get. And if you think about what you just said about OSB, markets don't top until they get overbought. And the longer people don't take these speculative positions, that means their inventories are going to be status quo or lean. So they're going to be basically at the market with the demand cycle instead of being preparatory in front of it. They're just going to be following along with it. And so the prices are going to follow the demand cycle as it goes up between now and probably April. So you look at surely there's some downside risk. I talked to a couple of guys this week that think that OSB is getting ready to fall table, and I would not be surprised to see OSB get a little bit weaker and mills just to go out and clean up some floor stock and just to make some room for for the end of the year. But contracts are coming, and that's the $1 million question too. What are those contracts going to be like? Are they going to be, are Home Depot and Lowe's going to take the same amount that they have been and try to hoard this stuff up, and are the big guys going to be piling it up, or is it going to be more open market wood? And it's going to be a fun market if there's not as many contracts and everybody's got a shot at getting some of that open, not free wood, but open market wood and trade it.
Tim Hansen said, I bought a couple extra cars, so you guys better be right. We could pull the Trump state. We could pull the Trump statement and say, if I'm right, I'll take full credit for it, and if I'm wrong, it's not my fault.
Yeah, Tim and I were talking about that earlier this week. Yeah, no matter what you buy, you immediately have buyer's remorse until you get a print that shows that you were right or wrong.
Yeah, but here's the crazy thing. I've never bought anything in my life and made money that I wasn't deathly sick to my stomach or worried about when I bought it. The times I've lost money is when I thought I was for sure about it, right? But no, that's a good point. Chris from YouTube.
Tim, go ahead.
Chris from YouTube was asking, do you see a decrease in custom building costs in early 2023? And I think, Matt, this is why I like watching your trend of the framing package that you put out. It's really good. But I think as far as custom building costs in 2023, well, let's look what's into custom building costs, right? I mean, if you take the land out, I mean, obviously there's a land cost, but then there's a labor cost, there's the lumber cost, and there's every other cost, cement, everything else. So I don't really have a great answer for that one at all. I still see labor being tight and being skilled labor, especially. And I think certain things may come up and down. Right now, the thing taking its turn in the box to make things a little bit less expensive are lumber, right? And I think big builders are probably out there. I don't know this for a fact. They're probably out there going to all their vendors right now trying to get their costs down also, right at a time when these vendors are running low inventory. So That's a terrible answer. What do you think, Matt?
Well, there's a couple, the things that make custom homes expensive are not lumber. And it's like funky windows and bathroom fixtures and extra trim and molding. So those items are kind of specialty items that they appear to be an authority on this by any means, but they appear to be better on the supply chain. But still, if there's a tightness in anything, it's those specialty kinds of items. So I think, Chris, that the commodity items, the framing packages, that your framing package is probably not going to get more full. And you just got to probably make sure that you've got your specialty items taken care of that it takes a little more time to get, because I don't know that those things have increased in production. But I'd probably have to say the price of the home may go down, the sales price of the home, but I'm not sure that your cost is going to go down particularly much.
And Chris and Matt, let's not forget linen wallpaper that my wife had me looking at the other day. I do not think that cost will ever go down.
Linen wallpaper.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's making a
that's a
comeback.
big item too, man.
It's making a comeback, Matt. Hopefully it's short-lived.
Yeah, shag carpet. Yeah, we got shag carpet and
So here,
bell bottoms.
John Breckenridge was saying a home builder reached out to their framers and told them that they will be deducting $1,500 from their labor contracts. Yeah, John, I mean, I've caught wind of some people going around. That's why I said I didn't really know for a fact of people going around and going to everybody and saying, hey, we need a reduction in costs on this or on materials or on the points you're making on us, right? And you still need to have service, right? I mean, so, and I think that a lot of that, this is just my speculation, is out of the unknown, right? Where you work at one of these big companies, you think to yourself, well, boss, I'll go out and see if I can get some lower prices, right? And what do you think there, Matt, according to John's comment?
Yeah, and I've heard that too. John, I was talking to John earlier about this earlier this week as well, and that I've heard that the large builders are going out trying to squeeze the framers. You go like, well, if you got a labor problem, where's the incentive for the laborers to give you back a little money? But if you talk about starting to lay people off, and it seems like there's just a big shift in I'll give you $5 an hour more to come work for me, to now I got to give you $5 an hour less to be able to keep you on the job. But
so I got a question, Matt. I mean, there's a lot of people commenting here. I appreciate all you viewers out there. What is your opinion on what you see in the market? Is it as bad as everybody says it is? Are you seeing bright spots? How are you running your business right now? If you could throw a comment up in there to let us know, it'd be great feedback, because I'm only as good as what I hear back from everybody on these calls, or when I talk to Matt, what I hear back on everybody he talks to. I mean, Matt has a lot of strengths, and one of his big ones is having the great ability to get a whole bunch of people in this industry to talk openly about what they're doing. I mean, it's almost like the men's group I go to, where everybody opens up and starts talking. You just do it in lumber, Matt, or the I shouldn't say men's group. That's the people's group, right? I mean, you have an uncanny way of getting them to open up, and you all get great feedback on it.
Well, I think everybody helping each other. I know what the answer to your question is, but I'm not going to say it, because I'd rather hear them say it, because I've heard it for the last 2 weeks. But
Yeah.
if for you guys, if you just weigh in, just say, are you going to build inventory or reduce inventory between now and the end of the year, or keep it the same?
That's a great question. So I guess throw us a comment. Are you going to build inventory or reduce it over the next what time frame, Matt, are you talking about?
It's between now and next 6 weeks.
See here, build or reduce.
If those were your only two choices, would you build inventory or reduce inventory?
Good question. Everybody's almost getting ready to type, but they're afraid to put it on there, because if they say build, anybody watching, they're gonna have a whole bunch of people calling trying to sell them lumber. Or you can send Matt and I the comments separately too on our DMs, but that's fine. I'm just more curious to see what the thought process is out there. But you know what? Some people saying that is kind of like they probably, some people like to hold that tight to the vest, right?
But let me tell you what I'm hearing, so you guys don't have to disclose what you don't have to put your name on what you're doing. My
Michael
findings.
Brett said, "Build. I have an unlisted number."
Yeah, Michael's a Canadian Yankee too, so he can, don't. He's a Michael might want to sell his lumber yard too if anybody's interested. Is that right, Mike? Still looking for a buyer?
That's
There's, I
awesome.
guess
That's
some
awesome.
there. There's
Sorry,
some.
I interrupted your. Oh, James Breck said, if that's the only two choices, then build. Sorry, James, we're making it really easy. We didn't want to give too many choices on that one.
All right. So far, 100% of the responses are I would build inventory.
Well, yeah, 100% of the responses are build inventory. That is for certain. That is for certain.
Well, I was going to say what my findings were that people expect that the first on the builder side, they expect that building is going to be a little off in the first quarter compared to first quarter last year, but not apocalyptic. And that's the kind of word I like to use. And then on a dealer side, the majority of the dealers are either going to stay the same or build inventory. There's that inventory thing, the inventory tax that comes up at the end of the year. But we're getting to be about 3 or 4 weeks away from being able to buy wood and have it delivered after the first of the year. But I sense a discomfort in being as low with inventories as low as they are, despite what you hear out of housing. It's been there's more popping in their desire to buy, looking for reasons why. That's a perfect answer, George. Yeah, I want to buy. It's like, the thing is, you're looking for a reason to why, but you don't want to follow it. You got to have the reason to jump and be first. If you wait for it to happen, you're going to be $100 behind it.
James is saying prefer match purchases to sales projections. Yeah, George said desire to buy, looking for reasons to build inventory, yet still fearful of the market's ability to get traction. Jerry says build up. Michael Brenton, best step in sooner than your anticipated turn in the market. Who cares about the tax if the market is up by 10%?
Exactly. 5% tax is going to be made up in a week or a day.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's interesting. Well, look I mean, I love having this interactive feedback. I think Nick said we were up to almost 50 on YouTube, and we had 30 something on LinkedIn, and those are the people that actually registered. So there's more actually watching too. So that's a pretty good show. But it's fun when we get interactive on this, Matt, and talk about it. I mean, it's good stuff to talk about it. And look I mean, if just from the America side of things, I hope we continue to build and take off, and things are better than expected. I mean, that's kind of the way we want to keep thinking of things, right? And they're never as bad as they quite seem. Although in this industry, and I've been at it, we always seem to weigh that heavily, both bad when it's really bad when it's bad, and sometimes too good when it's really good, right? And that's one of the reasons what we have volatility.
And our inclination is to whichever way it's going. The lumber side overreacts all the way one way or the other.
No doubt.
And I feel like the market is as underbought as it's ever been in any situation. And I don't remember what the 80s were like because I didn't care then, but it just seemed like, the way 2008 came and, slapped everybody real quick, that the situation is different. We don't have financial sloppiness that we had in 2008. The whole dynamics are different. And this is a self-imposed recession type of feeling era that was created by loose lending or loosening of the economy, followed by tightening the economy, and the next thing that's going to happen is we're going back to loosening the economy again. So I see the expansion, contraction, just like the rubber band, just kind of popping back and forth, and we're going to go back out just like we came from.
Well, look, I got us up. We took 45 minutes of your time, Matt. Thank you so much. Appreciate this. I think this is a great show. I really like everybody that you bring along, commenting on stuff, because like I said, I'm only as good as hearing back from people that have their boots on the ground and are in the field, slinging the sticks around, delivering them, and actually doing the real work. So appreciate that, everybody, and looking forward to seeing you next week on the show. And Matt, thank you very much.
Thank you guys for participating and coming. Thanks, Ash.
All right, you bet. Bye.
Have a good day. Bye.